Okay, I think we are live now. Right. Welcome everybody to the node.js security meeting, the first one of 2024. Hope you all got a very good holiday season. For some reason, I'm seeing the broadcast private, and it's not with the correct title. I don't know what's happening. I can change it later. I don't know if I'll be able to do that now. And we can start. So before I start, does anybody have any announcement? I have one. Actually, that's for Marco. Marco will be one of the security experts to work in the automation of security release. So tomorrow we'll have an onboarding meeting. So I will ask for all the permissions he will need to get. And I expect Marco to help us automating the security release. And this also will impact the release in general. So I expect that in the end of this work, we'll be able to release things faster and deal with conflicts in a better way. So yeah, congrats, Marco.
Yeah, that's definitely good. It just made me think, if you're going to be spending some time bringing Marco up to speed on the automation so far, it might be worthwhile either pulling in like the security stewards or releasers who use that automation. It might be a good time to just say like, hey, here's what we're working on so far. So just an invite to that onboarding session or to that, to a session where you're going to like go over that part. So people who are interested could show up would make sense.
Okay. Yeah. So what we can do, since it is already scheduled and we don't want to spend
maybe
much
a
time just to
follow-on
find.
one or something.
Yeah. I'm planning to record the session with Marco,
Okay.
and then we can share it on the security, and share the minutes. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, that's one announcement. Let's see if we have another one. I don't think so. For the collaborators listening the meeting, we are looking for secret release stewards. So if your company are willing to sponsor a new form in the secret side somehow, apply, ping us. We are looking for that. Okay. As usual, we go to the vulnerability review and then OpenSSL monitor review. Going to this list, I think we are still waiting for the OpenSSL release. Let me check if we have that OpenSSL. I didn't triage that a while ago. Let me check. The last release was November 23, but is OpenSSL version 3.2, which is the one that we don't use. And the last one was October 24. So yeah, we are still waiting for OpenSSL release to fix that.
For low severity vulnerabilities, right?
Yes, that's correct.
The thing I noticed there is it seems to be failing on main, the automation for some reason. I'm not sure why, but
okay.
Need to check out. Like if you look, I was looking at the actions and it just says invalid numeric literal. It seems to be running and checking for the like 18, 20, and 21, but
let me check. I didn't see that.
Yeah, if you just look at the last action.
OpenSSL update. Okay. All the actions failed.
Well, sorry, maybe we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about here.
Oh, it's failing the OpenSSL version 1, but we don't use version 1 anymore. It was for Node.js 16, right? The OpenSSL v3 update is working fine. I think we can just drop OpenSSL version 1.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about.
The check of vulnerabilities.
Yeah, the check of vulnerabilities, not OpenSSL checks, although that other one, it's also worth looking at as well. So
let me check.
I mean, it's just when I was looking, because we were going to look at it, just that last one, like 18, 20, and 21 all seem to do the right thing, but for main, it's not quite doing the right thing. So
okay, so looks like it is just failing, but it's not showing the reason, right?
Yeah, like it looks like it isn't somehow. I don't know if it's like main is getting it messed up or something, but like it just, that invalid numeric literal kind of sounds like it's just not working at all, is my guess. But maybe you're right that it's returning and not parsing it or something.
That's not working for all versions, right? Like
no, the other ones basically if you look at the check vulns, they fail, but they return a vulnerability.
Okay. Okay, I will create an issue for that.
Yeah.
Should we create an issue in the security working group or in that repository? I think
probably in that
security
repo
working group, right?
Probably in that repo, either one.
Okay. I will create on the security because it's better to manage.
Yeah, we'll remember that one better, is true.
Dependence check. Let me just get the name because I always forget. Automation failing. Let me. Okay, and I saw also OpenSSL drop OpenSSL v1 update because that's failing. It's not related, but let's create an issue for that as well. Right. So check. The next one is OpenSSF monitor review. Ulysses.
Yeah, let me share the link. So I will say that there are not a lot of changes.
No
I think the most relevant for us are related to Unditsi and to Node. So in the case of Node, we have a 0.3 decrease, which is related mostly to the code review. So some change sets where like previously were like about 9 of 7 or something. Now it's like 15 or so. Yeah, we decreased a little bit, like 3 points there. So that's one of the reason. And in Unditsi, if I remember well, yeah, we got the opposite. We go an increase of 2 points in the code review section, which in total it's a 0.1 point on the overall. So yeah, but the rest of the repositories, I think it's kind of organic, but if we can check other one specific. But yeah, I think the more relevant ones are Node and Undit in this review. So yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. I've just merged because I think we don't have anything else to discuss on this one. We are not like actively working to make it happen. So yeah.
Yep.
Now going to the Node.js security working group, we have the security initiative of fuzzing, but neither Amir nor David joined, so we can skip. Skipped. And then we have Node.js code integrity. Also, Microsoft Forks didn't join. Skipped. Then we have S-bombs for Node.js. Should we skip or do we have something to discuss?
So I think we can skip for today since none of the interest ones. If you missed it last time, we saw another company interested in bringing S-bomb into Node.js. This time it's not Cyclone DX. as a standard, but the ISO, I don't remember right now the name of the tool, but it's another standard. So on Monday, I will check with also the foundation to see if there are some guidelines towards which standard we want to we prefer, because one is ISO, one is standardized by TC 54. So yeah, I will check on that on Monday and update you.
And I assume that the audit build process for dependencies is stopped until the SBOM resolution, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I also checked if minimatch is still needed, and it is used by the test runner to actually the assertion to match strings. So it's a dependency that we still need. I mean, it's not very important, but like before, I think it was in the core, but then it was decided to implement to use minimatch instead of maintaining inside the core. So that's it. And the build to the update tool for Undici is broken locally, but it works on the CI. So I'm trying to figure out why that doesn't work on my machine, because the build for Undici and Minimatch is quite ugly because it goes through it uses ES build to basically create one minified file with everything, rather than using all the the library itself. So I'm checking if there is a better way to do it, because right now you have to do npm install, so it downloads the whole tree for Undici and for Minimatch, and then it bundles it all together. I think it's actually terrible. So I will have a look into it.
Okay. I have moved the permission model to the next listing on agenda, because I assume that for CII we will go to a deep dive and finalize it. So we did a bunch of stuff for the permission model for this next release. We are I've created a pull request to allow add-ons. So a new flag -- allow add-on. And we have also created a pull request to support relative paths for Node.js for the permission model. This is quite important. It's a notable change. Now, if you use the permission model, actually after today's release, we'll be able to pass relative paths in the CLI. So this will make things way better. I created 3 fixes for the permission model, and I think CodeByte, the handle is CodeByte, she created another pull request to fix an integration with Electron.js, and yeah, a lot of things happening. Right. The next step is to talk about CII best practice. So Ulysses, do you want to jump in so we can go to, I don't know if we are missing to do the silver level, or we can go directly to the gold one?
Yeah, let me do a fast recap. So if I remember well, let me see. So yeah, for sure we have the gold, the gold one. Let me also open, let's see where we are. Okay, let me share my screen. So yeah, we'll share desktop one, I think. Yeah, you should be able to see GitHub and not Room, I guess, if I'm sharing the correct one. You can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so basically, going back to the status, so we have several pull requests open for this right now. So one of them is related to the context for the entry level. This one should be easy because it's just a matter of adding extra context for all the responses that we provided in the past. So it's just a matter of having a review. I think yeah, I think Rafael pointed out that I was pointing to main directly. So the idea maybe is to point to a specific commit in the main branch. So that way we can keep the same version over the time. So I will fix that one and we can have a look, I think, offline and just get some approvals on these pull requests and we can merge it. But this not making any change on the responses. It's just adding some context. So that's one of the things ongoing. Then we have for the silver level, we have two things. One is a pull request that add also the new context. So the same as I did for the entry level, which is going to be this one. So the same thing. Also, I need to change the reference to the main branch to a specific commit hash. But yeah, that's something that I will do offline, and I will ping you when it's ready. But yeah, it's a very similar to the previous approach with the passing one. Then we have another pull request open currently for the silver badge. For those who don't remember, we have a discussion with the OpenSSF about updating the silver badge and try to transfer the ownership from Rod to the group or to one of us, so that we can easily make modifications. But yeah, there is some technical bug on their side, so we are waiting for some feedback on that. And currently, the thing is we cannot make any changes and not transfer the ownership right now. So that's why you cannot see the changes yet fully reflected on their website. But aside of that, we're still working. So the day that we can, just finish with that bug, we can finish with update. So the next step for us is going to be, I think, jumping to the goal level, which currently we didn't discuss about it, I think, previously, like on live or something like that. So I just created that pull request. Let me see. Let me open it here directly. So yeah, basically this one has the same approach as the silver and the passing level. So you have also the context included here, so it's easier for the discussions. And yeah, I'm not very sure what we want to do now. If we want to go live and discuss about all of this, or we should go offline and just leave some comments here if we pass or not, or discussion about references and
just one thing before that, can we merge the three pull requests you have just mentioned?
yeah, I think we can do that, and I can change the reference from main to the commit hash in a separate pull request later on. So that should be fine.
I'm merging the entry level now.
Okay.
I'll go to the silver. I know that Richard mentioned something that to review the recommended hardening compiler options, but this is something different from the goal of this pull request, which is just adding context. So we are good to merge it.
We are good to merge it.
And then we have the CII silver badge form responses. I know that Rod did some comments, but I think we can merge it as well, right? There is a conflict. I will just resolve. Let me.
Yeah, I think you can resolve it easily with the web interface. Crossing fingers.
Yes.
Yeah. So I will ping Rod and I will move the discussions for the permissions to the actual issue for all of this. So that way
on that one though, on improving the answers, I had a comment. I just was looking back. It's like I didn't quite understand the hardening mechanisms part.
Yeah. Now we should be able to know more for that. Let me see if we go to I think it's going to be in 1 minute ago tools. So yeah, let me see. Now we have I think it's in Silverine. So now we should be able to have.
Yeah. Okay. So that added the.
Yeah. So we have more context here, so we can check it out, see the previous team discussions, and also checking a little bit of what is the understanding for hardening.
Yeah.
and what they are waiting for.
Just fix it the conflicts for silver budget, and I will merge it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, I think in terms of hardening, yeah, it's most likely HTTP headers, compiler flags, mitigation of attacks, the typical ones. Yeah, I think default behavior, like if you're using like the typical framework that has a lot of default pre-built things that you might not need, remove them. These kind of things, I think that's expected on the hardening. And yeah, less
Right.
privilege, these kind of things. So
I'm not sure we've done that though. Right, like maybe you had a link to previous discussion, but like I'm
yeah,
not saying we
let's
haven't
see.
done any of those things, but I don't know if I could point to anything that shows we intentionally have done
Yeah,
things
I
on,
think
right?
Tobias mentioned something regarding the flags that I remember on the compiler and things like that. But yeah, I don't know if we should do. Yeah,
Because that's sort of that one where it's like the final user has the power to decide. I'm not sure about that, right? Like, I think it would be more like we should have we looked at here are the hardening mechanisms that were options. We decided to use these options, not these other options. So I think we need something something probably documented that says we've thought about this and this is what we decided to do, right? Like even if it's like, oh, these are too performance, so we didn't do it, at least then we
yeah,
have something to explain that. And I don't know that we have that anywhere.
yeah. Because I think the key, I think maybe a lot of discussion was around like how we understand this hardening. Like if it's something in terms of the product that we ship to the end customer. So like when you install Node and you use Node in your machine
Yeah.
or your environment, is that kind of hardening, or is the hardening regarding on how the people get the binaries, download them, and things like that? And I think I was discussing at the beginning, thinking that it was more like how we provide infrastructure for you to get the binaries, and maybe now it's more like the hardening on how you can use Node in your project and how much we condition your project based on what we done, right? So that's why I was thinking in terms of we try to, I mean, we ship a lot of features, but if you use MD5, for example, to hash passwords, that's up to you, but you can
I
use
think
other.
okay. Yeah, like in that I can understand that part of it, but I'm more like, say the compiler flags, right? The user doesn't have any control over that aspect of things.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah,
So I
unless
think
they do a build themselves, but yeah, that's not the common.
if you build your own, but I think
Yeah.
I think the intent would be here for like for that particular example at least would be like, do we have those things? And I guess also, even on HTTP, you could say like, what do we turn on by default or not?
Yep.
I just think like we should probably take an action that says like, let's look at what hardening would mean, document that somewhere. And it may even be something like, there's been discussion of like a security review. That would be something that we might be able to get some help with, on that.
Yep.
If that happens.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good idea to, just by starting building a document saying like, that's what we know for now and start, improving it over the time with more expertise on that.
Yeah.
I think will be a good idea. Yeah, I think in the future we do an audit. Definitely it's going to be a, basic document to start with. So I think it's
like if
something
we
useful.
added it somewhere and then say maybe to the collaborators, like what all things would you say we think we do today, right? Because like you said, it could be here's what we've done, and we refer to that as a link.
Yep.
Because like like you said, Tobias mentions there's some things like that we have like here are the options that are currently on, and
Yep.
okay.
Yep. That's a good feedback. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we can extract an action item from this. So yeah, just a side note from my side, I will rewatch this video later and make the action notes and so on, so we can go more agile on the discussion. But yeah, that's a very good point. So yeah, what do you want to do next? We have like a half an hour potentially. Do we want to go fast on the goal level and discuss a little bit,
Yeah, I think we can start with the gold criteria, and we go like 20 minutes on that, and
yeah. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I will say like the project must have a silver level badge. That's obvious. So I will assume it's met when we submit that. If not, that's going to be okay. Okay, so the project must have a boost factor of 2 and more. I think we have a similar question in the silver level. When we have a question that has been answered before, I put something like inherit from whatever. So in this case, I think they have a similar question, but not exactly the same. So that's why it's not related to that question in the silver. Yeah, there are something.
What bus factor means? That's related to the CI.
I think that's related to permissions, CI, and people who has like admin permissions or permissions to publications and things like that. I think
it basically means if one person gets hit by a bus, the project can continue.
Yeah.
Oh,
like it's really saying
it's not a solo maintainer project,
but it's like you shouldn't have it. You shouldn't be depending on a single person for things to happen, right? And so like a bus factor of 1 means there's one person. They're not around, it doesn't happen. A bus factor 2 means you have 2 different people, right? And so forth. So it's kind of like I don't know if you'd call that slang or whatever, but it's
and the URL required means that we can just link the collaborators list or TSC list.
Oh yeah, or the governance model directly, and because there we explain like it's clear like the roles of the people, and then and then we can later on contact the list. But yeah, once you have a clear governance, I think this is solved. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the link to like you said, the list of collaborators and the list of TSC members, it's like clear from that it's no single person, no single company.
Okay.
That we depend on, right?
I don't understand why this fits in the security model. Like it's a reasonable question, but I don't know why this is in a security badge question, because I don't see why security.
I think it's tricky because if you for example have a boost of 1 person and that person doesn't collaborate anymore, you can have CPE spending for years until nobody do a patch, or even if somebody want to do a patch, nobody will promote that release. So at the end you end up having. But yeah.
But the other side, if you have a lot of people with access, you have a lot of fronts of leaking,
Yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, and how you set the passwords and so on. So yeah, that's tricky.
Anyway, that's Matt then. Next one.
So yeah, the next one is the project must have at least 2 unassociated significant contributors.
Yeah, we do have.
Yeah, I think just to clarify, unassociate mean like from different companies, right? Kind of thing, like you're employed by different. Okay, yeah, that's me. Yeah. Yeah, and we have policies to prevent that to happen. So yeah, that's clear. So in terms of governance, I think we are clear. So in the other section, okay. So the project must include a copyright statement in each source file, identifying the copyright holder. Yeah, I think Jordan was pushing back for this on some of the issues, discussing about it, if I remember well. I think we have a lot of copyright notice in many of the files, but not all of them, potentially. And also we have a lot of config files and stuff that is fairly difficult or not very relevant to have that. So
yeah, that's also confusing for me why this is related to security. This is more governance, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say we don't meet that. And I think we should maybe just push back on that one. Because if we don't for all of them, then we don't meet the all, right? And if we really need to have it for all of them, then we need a policy that says they will be added. And I think it was kind of agreed that that's not necessary. We have what we think we need, and we have it in like a higher level. So that one is a good one to say, like, no, we're not going to meet that unless somehow we're convinced that we need to, right? And then
Yep.
we'd have to actually make an effort or something.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. So I assume that if we have the option of not applicable, we should mark as not applicable. In other case, we should go with unmeet, right? Just to clarify here, because for sure we are not going to make every file pushing that. But in the meantime, until we manage to, push back this requirement, we can put unmeet and we are comfortable with that.
I think we should put unmet, and like basically if you've got the contacts, to go back to them and say, like,
Yeah.
this is also one that, based on our understanding, we don't think makes sense. So, if you want us to continue to look at going for gold,
Yep.
what's the outcome? Let's work to either convince ourselves that we need to do it or remove it as a requirement.
Okay. Okay. I think the same apply for the next one, because this one was about the copyright statement, and then it's going to be about the license statement in each source files as well. So it's like one is for the copyright, like who owns it, and the other one is the type of license, is it MIT or MIT or whatever license. So I think it's the same response, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it may be like, I mean, I guess you've got some CIA best practices. Those come from anyway. Yeah, I think it's worth like trying to get that discussion to happen, to either say,
Yeah.
no, this really matters. And then, as a project, we have to look at it and say, does that make sense for us? And how do we make sure we actually meet it, right? Like, it's a requirement. We probably need some automation that checks every file and make sure it's there, because otherwise, it'll be impossible to manage.
It will be impossible, yeah. Okay, yeah, I will raise a separate issue for discussing this, and I will specifically mention Jordan as well. So yeah, that we can have a separate discussion. So yeah, change control. I think this one is clearly me, like having the project must use a common distributed version control software. Yeah, we use GitHub, so that's okay. The project must clearly identify small tasks that can be performed by Newcastle contributors. Yeah, 100%. Good first issues is a good option. Okay, the project must require two-factor authentication for developers, for changes in the repository. Yeah, I think that's
we do
already
it.
at a GitHub level organization. I think Jordan is doing that at the foundation level right now, checking, and Node.js is compliance already. So for us, it's okay and confirm it. So I can just point out to that URL so we have it clear.
To the good first issues. I mean, I don't think we need to discuss much. I'm really curious to get why that's a security thing. I don't know if you have any more context on that, but
yeah, I think it's best practices, like a little bit bigger than just security. My feeling, especially in the gold level, like is also not just limited to security purely, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the project must require two-factor authentication for the. I think we just responded to that one. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the next one, the project two-factor authentication should use cryptographical mechanism to prevent impersonation. Yeah, we use GitHub and we follow whatever they offer. So that should be compliance, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Quality coding standards. Okay, the project must document its code review requirements, including how code review is conducted, what must be checked, and what is required to be acceptable. Yeah, that's super clear. We have already a section for that on the documentation. Okay. The project must have at least 50% of all proposed modifications reviewed before release by a person other than the author to determine if it's a worthwhile modification and free of known issues which will argue against its inclusions. I think this is
we
clear.
have 100% of reviewed. So it's not just the OSSF scorecard, but we have a lot of policies against merging things without review and so on.
Yeah. And Git force push messages on Slack pointing out the people. So I think it's clear. Yeah. Pointing out that with the scorecard we also have these checks when something is merged without a review and things like that. But that's tricky.
I think we can remove the OSSF scorecard mention or include the other ones mentioned, because looks like the only way we are checking that is by OSSF.
Okay.
A scorecard. Otherwise, but we do have a lot of policy. We can just mention it.
Yep.
Yeah, I would find the entry in the collaborator guide that talks about reviewing.
Yeah.
And just add that. Like, I think having the fact that the OSSF scorecard tracks and checks that is good, like an extra good thing. But like the first thing should be like, as per the policy, everything needs at least one review, right? Like,
Yep. I see the point. Yeah. I will use the same link and the previous one. That's directly for the review. Yeah, makes sense. And I agree that we can remove even the mention because it's going to be like a little bit confusing for someone that is fully outside and so yeah. Okay, working build systems. That should be a little bit more tricky, I think. So the project must have reproducible builds. If no building occurs, a scripting language with the source code is used directly instead, select not applicable. So in our case, it's applicable, I think, because we do builds and so on, but we don't have reproducible builds one-to-one, bit by bit kind of thing. That's for sure. So this is going to be on Meet. I think there is an issue ongoing discussing this, if I remember well. If not, I will just recheck it. But yeah, I remember discussing it with Michael and Richard and so on.
Yeah,
so,
Stuart has been working a bit on that.
Yep.
I know Joey's doing a bunch of work to get the snapshots. So yeah.
Yeah, I believe that all the S-bombs and the audit build for dependencies is just a small piece of this big initiative. So I believe once we conclude both, we'll be able to achieve these reproducible builds way easier than now.
Yep, that's a very good one. Yeah. Okay, automated test suite, which is the next section. A test suite must be invocable in a standard way for that language. Yeah, I think that's fully met. The project must implement continuous integration where new or changed code is frequently integrated into a central code repository and automated tests are run on the result. That's met already.
Yep.
The project must have flawless automated test suites that provide at least 90% statement coverage if there is at least one flawless tool that can measure this criterion in the selected language. I think I'm not very sure if we can provide if you have a URL link or something.
Test, but I don't know if we specify 90%. Well, I think we only specify like we should not decrease in the coverage, but I don't know if we have like a rule for 90% or something.
We don't have any failing like it's not like you can't land a commit if the coverage is below a certain point or everything, but we have this ongoing. I just pasted the link where we have coverage that shows what our coverage is for, the directories.
Yep.
And just looking at that, it like, for lib, it's fairly high, but for source, it's like what is currently reporting is in the 70% kind of range.
Yeah.
I think it's met because while although we don't have like check fail when the cover is not met, we will have a warning and someone will raise concern about that. Personally, I never saw a pull request that got that warning landing anyway. So I think we are good.
Well, I think, but we don't, it says you must meet 90%, and I don't think we do, right?
Yeah, I think
that this one is the branch, coverage on branch. I don't know if that's a statement. The row below is about 8% of branch coverage, which we met with 85%. But I don't know about statements. I check it and
about the statement. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So we would need to make sure, and we would need to point to like what do these numbers mean, and then therefore do we meet it or not meet it in terms of, because all I see is like 95 and 71 and 70, right? So tools we could probably argue doesn't necessarily need to be coverage, but lib and source we'd need to have some way to say like, okay, what is, in terms of the 90, what does that actually mean, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, I'll define a clear criteria for us saying like, this is our scoring based on these files or whatever that we track.
And I'm not sure if, I mean, I never checked, but I'm not sure if a code cov will give us the correct percentage. For instance, when we write something, an implementation in C++, we normally test it in the JavaScript side, which is in the lib folder, which means that the source will always be like in a lower coverage percentage than the lib folder, which is showed on this graph. But it doesn't mean we are not testing that. It's just because we have like an integration test, and I think it doesn't matter for us, right?
I think this should be capturing the testing that we do. If it's not, we should, one of the things would be to figure out how to add some of the tests, which this isn't covering, because this is our measure, right? Like, and I know that the previous code coverage, which I was more involved in, basically collected both the JavaScript and C++ coverage levels. And this seems to do the same thing, right? Because the things in source are definitely, the C code, which are and it shows us some coverage.
Yeah, but the coverage, for instance, the coverage for source folder is basically C++ tests, right? The JavaScript tests will not match in the source folder.
I think it should cover those as well.
Oh, okay. So that's fine.
Right? Like basically when you do the the code gets instrumented, then you run a bunch of tests. And so those should both be our JavaScript testing and whatever C++ testing we do.
Okay.
So it should be, I mean, I think in the end, what we need, like, if you want to say we've met that, you've got to say, here's our data, here's our collection that actually shows we're doing it, right? So I think this is collecting all the coverage that we have. And if it was a case where, well, it wasn't collecting it all, it doesn't mean we can say met. We would have to say, like, well, maybe we do meet it, but we've got to actually be able to show that somehow, right?
Okay. Yeah, I think.
So yeah, the next one is the 80%. So we can go directly to the security.
Yeah.
What was the 80% versus like there was a 90%?
90% of statement coverage and 80% of branch coverage.
Okay, right.
Yeah, 90% I see here. Okay, and 80. Okay. So yeah, so the 80% is for sure, I think, right? And the 90 we need to
I don't know. I think 87% can be like the coverage in general. Usually branch coverage is like way is lower than total coverage, like lines covered. But I mean, they didn't provide these metrics, so
okay,
we need to check.
you need to check. Okay, that's okay. I will, if you want, I can open a separate issue to discuss that and see that in detail, and if we need any further action. Okay. Okay, so it's 80%. Okay, security. Use basic good cryptographical practices. Okay, so the software produced by the project must support secure protocols for all its network communications. Okay, in secure protocols such as FTP, HTTP, Telnet, SSL-v3, and earlier must be disabled by default and only enable if the user specifically configures it. Okay. If the software produced by the project does not support network communication, select not applicable. So I think this is a little bit tricky, right? Because for the end user of Node, we provide a bunch of cryptographic mechanisms, right? So they can actually build whatever they want with that. So that's up to them. And in terms of how our software use network to communicate itself, I think that's not applicable because we don't do any, as far as I know, network requests, just to check, if you are in the last version of Node, whatever, we don't do any of those things. We just ship the binary and you use the binary. And
I think there are two things here. The first one is we should always consider main as a reference.
Okay.
And I think we need to check all the protocols mentioned, but we do provide a way to create an HTTP server, HTTPS server, use SSL, TLS, and we just need to check if we provide all those methods. I don't know if we support SSL version 3. We need to check with OpenSSL, I guess. but I think this is applicable to Node.js.
Okay.
I think it's a bit like, it may be that like the SSL v3, we'd want to make, we need to say like, we provide an HTTP server by default, you don't get SSL v3, right? But like, things like FTP, HTTP, Telnet, all those things don't really apply. It's more like you could build your own server, but
Yep.
unless you enable it. The only one I could see where it's applicable is like default algorithms. Like,
Yes.
the SSL v3. If we defaulted SSL v1, maybe that doesn't really
Yeah, I think my understanding is that when they must be disabled by default is basically we don't call with unless the user explicitly say, okay, let me create a HTTP server.
right, which we don't, right?
Yeah.
Like you could argue like we don't do any of those things. So I could see an NA as well in terms of like we don't do any of those things unless the user actually asks us to do so.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, for instance, let's say that we are checking for newest versions in Node.js and we need to perform a remote call. We should make sure that we are using HTTPS and so on. I believe that in your case, this is all of this is disabled by default, but we need to check if we support security protocols like SSH version 2.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, that's like the SSH is like an SSH server. We don't implement or use an SSH server at all, right?
But we don't have a way for the user to create that.
They could build their own out of cryptographic algorithms, but it's kind of like saying, you would need to build it, so it's basically unless configured by the user.
Yeah.
I think because you look at the next one, and the next one talks about like, hey, if you support TLS, then what do you need to support, right? And that one we start like we now support TLS through the HTTP server. So that one I could see being applicable, and we need to.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's non-applicable then, considering the next questions.
Okay.
Yeah, for TLS we do support, and then we have the man-in-the-middle attacks, right?
Yep. I think that's fine. Okay, so we would not applicable here. And the next one, which is related to the TLS, yeah, I think we meet this criteria as well, right? In terms of the versions.
I don't know what means key hardening headers with non-permissive values, but I believe that's just the GitHub account, right? Like it's split by.
Well, this one is the product that we're talking about. I think maybe the one before about supporting TLS version 1.2.
No, I'm talking about the man in the middle because the TLS we do support, right? Like there's no question on that.
Sorry, where's the man in the middle? I'm not quite
line 202.
Okay, let me.
What's on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think the previous one, I think we've got that right. Like OpenSSL supports the latest TLS. So
yeah, that should be me. Okay. So and man in the middle one. Okay, the project website repository, if accessible via the web and download site, if separate, must include key hardening mechanisms with non-permissive values. Okay.
Yeah,
so that would be interesting to understand what that means. I guess maybe the context talks about that.
Yeah, let me see what's the context and what is this team discussion around it. Let's see if this link will work fine because yeah, seems like the team discussion. The information is open, so no authentication required, and the binaries include a Shashim ShakeNet by the releasers.
I think we need to get feedback from
yeah. That's
I mentioned in the pull request, so I'm creating some notes. So
Yeah, we can discuss this because it's true. Like even if the download server get compromised, right? As we use PGP to sign the releases, you should be able to verify the binaries, even if you get from a really bad source. So in that sense, we download a lot of the pressure from the distribution systems, right? Because it's all open and you don't have any credentials or anything. And if you get a bad binary, you will notice with just by doing a checksum or not getting a good validation of the binaries. It's like
this one though should be able to be testable, right? Like basically there should be like in what are the key hardening headers and do we have them or not, right? Like so if we, I think we need to understand what is that list, and then it should be easy to basically say, okay, we hit the site and it should tell us yes or no, right? And in fact, it might set up a CI, like if we think that's important, a CI that does that periodically and make sure, we still got those headers, right?
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, so I will create a separate issue for discussing this and to elaborate some scripts and see. But makes sense.
For the last 4 questions, I suggest to do it in the next meeting because we are almost run out of time, and we discuss things fast and like without context.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we can leave it. Yeah. Also, if we want to have a discussion offline and you want to start point out discussion, so feel free to open discussion here. If you want to say something directly. But I think it was a super productive one. So I will, as I said before, I will see the video and create the issues and update the things. So probably before Monday. So
Yeah, I left some comments in the pull request, by the way, so you can use it.
Okay.
It's not like meaningful comments, but I think you remember about the discussion.
Yeah, and we have the video, so there's a good option to get the context. Fantastic.
Okay. So thank you everybody for joining. I will give you 2 minutes back and hope to see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.